Welcome to the Pandemic Pantry, where today we're going to be making some white pizza. Why white pizza? Well, I was looking in my pantry and I thought, I don't really want to use all those tomatoes that I've got. And I also didn't want to use the small amount of cheese, or maybe you don't have any cheese. So what can we do instead? Well, we can make a pizza base and some ricotta topping. So the recipe for this pizza dough is going to once again be coming from The Bread Baker's Apprentice. I love that book. And we start out with our bowl on a scale that we've zeroed out so that we can measure in 574 grams of flour. I need a little bit more than that. Oh, a little bit over. Let's pull some back out until we got the 574 grams. Next, we need 12 grams of salt. Measure it in, making sure we get it right. And then 3 grams of yeast. Once again, I'm using instant yeast. If you use active dry, make sure you proof it. 57 grams of olive oil right in, and then 396 grams of cold water. Make sure it's cold. Once we've mixed all that together, we can put that into the mixing bowl with the dough hook and even out the consistency with some flour. In this case, we do want a sticky dough. Make sure your mixer doesn't exit the countertop. And once it's done mixing, we're going to pull it back out and measure our pizza balls. So measure out the size of your full dough and then split it into 6 balls. Once we've got the 6 balls, we'll prepare the container for it to go into. This is just a plastic box that I've got that has some parchment paper on the bottom, and then I brush some oil in. Once we've formed these balls, we'll put this all into the refrigerator immediately. There's no proving, there's no fermentation before this. It just goes straight in the fridge, which is why we use the cold water. This dough uses a cold fermentation method where it will sit in the fridge overnight, continuing to grow more flavor, break down those starches, and just get a very, very nice texture and flavor. So right into the fridge it goes. Now the next day, when we want to make the pizza, pull out however many balls of dough you want to make, and let them just start warming up. And while those are warming, let's measure out 2 cups of milk. You can use pretty much any milk you want. You can see here I'm using a UHT milk. It'll work just fine for this. So the 2 cups of milk goes into a saucepan. And we bring that up to temperature. We're aiming to bring it up to 75 degrees Celsius. This will take a few minutes, and you don't want to burn it, so just keep an eye on it, keep stirring it. And when it hits 75 degrees, we're ready for the next step, which is to add some vinegar. So the vinegar is going to curdle the milk and produce something a bit like ricotta. This isn't fully ricotta, but it works for what we're doing, and it's still very tasty. So I started out by using a teaspoon, and you use a teaspoon of the vinegar and add it into your milk. Just stir it in. And then once we get it stirred into our milk, we'll need to let it sit for a while for the vinegar to do its job. So put the lid on and just walk away and have a nice relaxing time somewhere. After about 8 minutes, come and check on it and discover that that wasn't enough vinegar. But that's all right. We can do this again. So this time, let's add a little bit more vinegar in. And I don't want to go too much because I don't want the cheese to taste like vinegar. So let's just go a little bit at a time. Put that in, mix it around, and nothing's changing, so we'll need a little bit more. Add a little bit more vinegar, another teaspoon or so, and does anything happen? It does. Look. If you look at the top of the milk, it's starting to change color in a few spots. It's a little mottled. That's what we want. It's starting to curdle. So lid back on and walk away. Enjoy yourself for about 8 minutes while the vinegar does its magic. So a few minutes later, we've got our curdled milk. So I've got a bowl with a strainer inside and some cheesecloth. If you don't have the cheesecloth, you can either just put it straight into the strainer if it's fine enough, or you can maybe use a tea towel. If you use a tea towel, it might take a little longer to drain out. I was trying to be nice and gentle with it. That was just taking too long, and so I just gave up and poured the whole concoction through the cheesecloth. This draining will take a few minutes, so while it's doing all of that, let's prepare the rest of our topping. We'll start out with just a clove of garlic. I used a small clove. Press it through a garlic press and scrape it off into the bowl. And now look around, and what do you have? I looked out in my garden, and I noticed that I've got chives and parsley starting to come up. It's early spring, and they're all coming back. So I went out and got me some chives and parsley. If you don't have fresh chives or parsley, you can use whatever you've got around. If you've maybe got some basil, some oregano, if it's dried or fresh, you can use any of it. Just throw it in there, what you think might be tasty. Add some salt in. Add some olive oil. And I wanted a little kick to mine, so some chili flakes. Now, when your cheese is finished draining, it should look like a complete mass, a bit dried out. Well, I shouldn't say dried out. Not a liquid anymore. Mix it together, and it looked a little too dry, so let's add some more olive oil into it. And we're good. So now it's time to make our pizza base. The dough ball is out on your counter on a well-floured surface. Press it into a round, and now work it with your fingers, with the backs of your hands, into a nice pizza shape. So you'll want to, when you're doing this, you'll notice I'm using the backs of my fingers and the backs of my hands. You don't want to use your fingertips too much because you'll just tear the dough. So just have a little fun with it. Throw it in the air, drop it on the countertop. It's all good. As long as it makes it into a shape that you can put your topping on, that's all that we care about. Now that we've got it in a shape on our sheet pan, put it together, and we're going to throw this all onto the top of the pizza, and then the pizza is going to go into an oven that is as hot as you can make it. So I think my oven goes up to about 250 Celsius. I put it all the way up, let it go all the way up, preheat it, and then keep an eye on it. After about 5 minutes, make sure you take a look. After about 8 minutes, I think that's where I got to, it came out of the oven looking bubbly and delicious. Now, there's a lot of variations you can make with this. You can add whatever you want into the pizza. It's yours. You can do what you want. Make a spicy pizza, make a creamy pizza. You could add a little cream to it if you have it. Just have some fun. So once again, this has been the Pandemic Pantry, and I've really been enjoying reading all of your comments on YouTube. So thank you all so much for leaving those. And if you have any ideas or requests for something that you'd like to see or hear about, please comment and let me know. Thank you all, and stay safe.